NFL Draft, Basebrawls, and Rizzo Bombs. Diamond Diehards is on! Joe Rizzo here bringing you baseball along with the dog, Jeff Healy, and our special guest, Peter Clarke. We are doing, we don't usually like to number the shows, but this is show number 2 of our special events as we start to break out and expand what we're doing. We will be doing our NFL Draft Spectacular on this show, but there's so much else to talk about in baseball that we can't leave behind the Mets having brawls and Cousin Anthony Rizzo hitting bombs all over the place, so we will dive into a little of that too. If you want to follow the show, we want you to do that as well. If you're following us on the Facebook live stream right now, we are glad you are doing that, and so join the group if you've done that. If you find our Facebook page, join that as well. And we're on all social media as Diamond Diehards and DiamondDiehards.com. If you want to be an audiophile and listen to the show, Apple Podcasts is the way to go, or Spotify as well, or even Amazon Podcasts, or anywhere you find your podcasts. You could do that and hit that subscribe or follow button. And of course, YouTube. We always put the shows up on YouTube, and maybe we'll stream there again sometime in the future. But for now, we just take these videos and throw them up there a little bit after the show is done. So if you like to catch it live, follow us on Facebook. That's usually where we're doing it live. And otherwise, if you catch it the next day, you're out for a walk, weather's getting nice up here in the Northeast, get out there or get on your treadmill, do whatever you're doing, and check out Diamond Diehards. We kick these shows off most times with a veteran of the day, and this show will be no different. And with that, I bring in the dog, Jeff Healy, to bring us Veteran of the Day. Dog?
All right, thanks, Riz, and welcome, Peter. This is great because we actually got a Veteran of the Day from our guest, Peter, which is always special to me. So I always like to have that and have a nice connection to it. So this is a fellow U.S. Army soldier. So this is our Veteran of the Day is Ryan Cordero. He served from 1998 to 2001 in the U.S. Army. He was a paratrooper, so he went through his jump training down at Fort Benning, and then up to Fort Bragg with the 82nd Airborne. So he got more jumps than a 5-jump like me. So good times there. Ryan serving again right for 9/11 there. So still a busy time for the 82nd though. The 82nd always, even without a war going on, the 82nd is always busy running around and serving as the global response force for the U.S. So once again, our veteran of the day is Specialist Ryan Cordero, paratrooper with the 82nd Airborne. Airborne all the way.
That's a pretty good veteran of the day. I got to tell you, we are not shy about patting ourselves on the back, and we do good veterans of the day. And that one, of course, brought to us by Peter. Now, I have known Peter for many, many years, and he is the purveyor of PAX Sports Zone, which you could find everywhere online. We'll let Peter do the plugs in a little bit. And, of course, the Two Dudes in a Mexican podcast. PAX Sports Zone earlier on this day, which is Wednesday, April 27th, he just published his complete draft preview, so we encourage you to check that out. But we're going to enjoy picking his brain here a little bit because I got to say, it's Peter's one of these guys that you might not he might not be Mel Kiper Jr., but behind the scenes, Peter's
is
track
that because
record.
He's right?
Behind the scenes, as I was bragging to one of my friends who happens to have played in the NFL himself, I was bragging about Peter before. I'm like, Peter should be working in personnel for an NFL team. He could tell you the 7th lineman on the Las Vegas Raiders and give you a view of his skill set and tell you which team should be trying to pluck him away. And over the years, if you followed his draft coverage, I mean, I don't, Pete, was it last year or the year before you were like 31 out of 32 in the first round or something really insane like that?
Yeah, last year I was pretty good with it.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
We'll excuse the fact that you're a Titans fan and a Braves fan, and we're gonna let you in. So Peter Clarke, welcome to Diamond Diehards, and thanks finally for joining us. We've been working on this here for a while, and today's the day. So I'm glad that we finally made it happen, my friend.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Dawg. Thank you for letting me come on the show. It's been great. I can't wait to talk football, talk baseball, talk anything. I can literally talk sports all day, as you know, and we've known each other for, like you said, a very long time, and I can really just keep going and going and going. So sports is my thing, and I just love talking about it.
Okay, so we are going to try to keep it to maybe within an hour, which by Dawg's standard and mine usually means like 2. So we will actually try to keep it, within a reasonable amount of time, so everybody can digest this a little bit. What we are facing here, and as we were talking about here in our pre-show meeting, more and more our analytics at Diamond Diehards have pointed to the fact that at this moment in time, after a couple of years doing this, our audience is really very focused toward the New York City metropolitan area. Now, if you are outside that area, you may still be a Giants or a Jets fan, or a Yankees or a Mets fan. We do shows that go outside of that realm sometimes, but most of the time we're focusing Yankees and Mets. So in this case, we're really going to focus on the top 10 in the draft. And, that includes the Giants and the Jets. But since football is so worldly, we will try to get through here, and maybe overviews of the first round. The most important thing is I'm going to sort of mediate between you guys because both of you guys are draft nicks, and I'm a guy who comes late to the party with, whatever beverage I happen to be drinking tonight or that night. And, I'm learning some of these names as I go along. And it's not like when I was the college football editor at ESPN Sports Ticker when I probably could have, helped somebody run a draft because I knew, the fourth defensive back on Cincinnati when they were 5-7. That's not the case anymore. So I'll try to mediate between you guys. We'll start at the top with the Jags, and we'll put Pete, you give us your view on what you think. Dawg, you chime in here as needed with what you think. I know you've been doing a lot of work on this as well. So Jags are up. Who's going first overall? It's not a sure thing at this point from what anybody knows.
Yeah, it's at that point where you really can't tell who's definitely – there's no locks really in any of the top 10 picks. And it looks like this top pick is going to be between Trayvon Walker – from Georgia, the linebacker from Georgia, edge rusher, and also Aiden Hutchinson, the pass rusher from Michigan. I think it sounds like it's going to be Aiden Hutchinson, but even after talking to people with the Jaguars and people that are within the organization, it's really split between those two, it seems like. Now, if you had asked me about a month or so ago, I would have said they should have taken Evan Neal. But obviously, they paid the franchise tag on Cam Robinson. Then earlier today, he signed a 3-year deal, $54 million. So that pretty much locked him out, took offensive lineman off the board. So it looks like it will be one of those two players, either Trayvon Walker or Aiden Hutchinson.
So, pull the lever and tell us which, you think it's going to be.
I think it's going to be Aiden Hutchinson.
Okay. Dawg?
I'm going to go with that. And I thought maybe a fun time to go quick on Walker coming up versus Thibodeau coming down, right? He was another guy who was sort of in the running for the top one. It seemed like maybe a little bit of the attitude or whatever at the combine and kind of soured some people off. And it seemed like it kind of opened it up for Walker. So I think it's interesting that the second edge getting looked at is actually Walker versus Thibodeau.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say something interesting.
I'll go with Hutch too. I think Hutch is
okay.
Right, is the call. Sorry.
I made this whole spiel about how I'm going to mediate and I'm not going to dive in. I'm going Walker. You know why? Because I saw the odds today went Walker minus 300 as being the first pick. That's like pretty strong odds on odds. And when I see a little flag from Vegas like that, that's raising my eyebrow. So I'm gonna go contrarian with you guys. Dawg knows how much I love to go contrarian, no matter what it is.
Plus, he's a time traveler.
And I'm a time traveler.
He also came back from Friday, so
yeah. Okay, so your consensus is Hutchinson from Michigan. Lions are up at number 2. That would kind of have been the dream pick, right? Hutchinson, the Michigan kid, could stay local. Walker, the Georgia kid, could stay relatively local to Jacksonville, but you think it goes the other way. So does that mean um, it's we feel both of you guys feel like the top 2 are consensus at least? Whoever doesn't go first will go second among those 2?
I think that is. I mean, they will be given a little look at Kyle Hamilton because safety is a big need for Detroit. So he is in the looking in there for possibly going number 2. But I think they're going to end up taking the pass rusher and go with Walker. As you were talking about with the combine with Thibodeau dropping down, Walker jumped up because he's 272 pounds and ran a 4.540. Like that's going to catch eyes. And from there on, he just shot straight up and his everything just with his stocks just soared after that. So yeah, I think Walker goes 2.
Dog?
I think I'm gonna go, and this is probably just because I want to hurt myself, but I think I'm gonna go Evan Neal and go with the tackle going over there. So I just have a feel I'd be surprised if I see him come down. I don't know if it's in Detroit or Houston. Sorry, the Diamond Dog hates the pick too. So but yeah, I'm gonna go with Neal, and I think again that just having the protection for your quarterback is huge. So I think Neal's a real special player, and I think he's a guy you grab and plug and play there.
Okay.
But Walker's obviously a great pick too. I mean, you can't go wrong either one there.
Yeah, I love Neal. So I definitely, unless I said I would have picked Neal, I would pick Neal number 1 if it was a month ago. So I definitely like Evan Neal. The only reason why, and I will put Neal for number 2, the only reason why I win is because they have Decker and they also have Sewell that they drafted last year. So they drafted their 2 tackles. So I don't, unless they're going to move on from Decker soon, I don't think they're going to get another one.
Okay.
Okay, so we get to 3. Dog, I'll let you go first on the Texans here.
Yeah, once again, I'm going to go with the pick in my pain here, and I'm actually going to go with the tackle again and going with Ekwonu for the Texans. I think they need to, again, I think they're a mess, right? So I think he's got everything. But again, I think they go and again build out with the tackles there.
I'm going to say Ekwonu also for number 3. He's the hot name. He's the name that I've heard that he's either going to go 3, 4, or 5. He's not going to go outside the top 5 because the Giants love him. The Jets may even take him, even though they don't really need an offensive lineman. And I think Houston is going to be that team to try to solidify their offensive line. Obviously, him and Neal are the 2 tackles. And right now, a lot of people like Ekwonu more than Neal because he's a little bit more athletic. He's a little bit more versatile. He's played guard. So I think he's the pick for Houston at number 3.
Interesting. I'll get a little bit. I'll talk a little bit about what I've read up on the linemen in a little bit. Jets at 4. That's now this is where some of the listeners here are perking up. They wanted to know what happened in the first 3. Now the Jets on the board for the first time at 4. Pete, where do they go?
I think this is going to be the one that's a little bit of a shocker to most people because obviously they would say Thibodeau if he's still on the board. If they wanted to, one of the tackles on my board, obviously Evan Neal would still be there. But I think they're going to go with Jermaine Johnson, the pass rusher from Florida State. I think he's actually my best edge rusher in the old draft. He was very productive last year. He gets a lot of bend on his pass rushes. He had a good combine. He ran the 4.5. So I think he's the overall athlete that they want alongside Carl Lawson on the other side of Carl Lawson and for the Jets.
Dog is curious on that one.
Yeah, well, actually, I totally get where that's come from, and Johnson seems like another one. They sort of sneaking up late in the pre-draft talk as well. So I could totally see that. I know there was people were talking about him potentially for the Giants, particularly like at a number 7, that would be a great spot for him. So yeah, I could totally see the Jets kind of going for that. For me, I'm going to go with Gardner for them. I think they could use another corner. I think that's sort of a nice plug and play fit for them on there. And I think that kind of gets down to, again, between corner and edge, just, who you think's best athlete and best sort of fit for your scheme and stuff like that. So I think either one of those picks, really, you can't go wrong.
So plus, let's face it. And
If you think Gardner's the top corner,
you're talking about you're talking about the cornerback from Cincinnati. So we got to give a little background on these guys sometimes because a lot of our viewers or listeners might not be familiar. Sauce Gardner from Cincinnati, the cornerback. How could he not go to one of the New York teams? Because then you got to decide. It belies the whole question. In New York and New Jersey on a Sunday, is it sauce or is it gravy? I don't know. I think he's got to go. He's got to go to one of the locals.
Well, I'll tell you what, both of the locals are definitely looking at him. I could definitely say that. He probably fit both teams. And he's been rumored as high as number 2 or 3, to be honest with you. The weird thing that I heard, though, obviously from Ian Rappaport, is that Derek Stingley, the other corner from LSU, is more likely to pick at number 3 than Sauce Gardner. So if they don't take an offensive lineman, which we both think they're taking offensive lineman, if they don't, it looks like Derek Stingley is the guy that they're really high on at number 3. So that could really disrupt what people think is going to be for the top 10.
Well, I think a lot of other teams would be celebrating if they did that because I think a lot of teams want Gardner. I mean,
it's interesting. Stingley's a very seems to be very split with that. That there are some who still like back to the 2019 film and look, he was on a crazy dysfunctional team, whatever, and you just look past it and the skills are there, and he was a consensus top guy coming into the season.
Yeah.
Versus the film is the film kind of crew.
He was dominant that freshman year. He was the best cornerback in the nation as an 18-year-old freshman. And just the last 2 years, and it's not completely his fault, but he's gotten hurt one year. They had COVID one year, so he really hasn't been the same since that first year. But he was so dominant that first year that he would have been a top 5 pick as a freshman if they were allowed to enter the draft at that time.
And that means low mileage, right?
Yeah.
So that could be another plus.
The one thing I hate taking quarterbacks top 10. I talked about this on my podcast earlier. Is unless of the last 30 years of cornerbacks that went in the top 10, the only ones that ended up being great were Deion Sanders, Rod Woodson, and Champ Bailey. So you really don't find your cornerbacks top 10. It's almost harder to find a great cornerback than it is to get a great quarterback. It's almost harder because they end up getting picked in the middle of the first round, end of the first round. Same thing with tight ends. You usually don't see great tight ends come out of the top 5 or top 10. They're usually second round picks, third round picks. It's just, I don't think you should take that risk to use a top 10 pick on a cornerback, especially in today's game where I think a safety is actually more important than a cornerback.
Interesting.
I heard that on your pod. I thought that was an excellent point.
Yeah,
Peter. That was one of the things I really took away from listening to your last show, with the two guys on the pod. So yeah, that was very interesting. And it's we can look no further than Eli Apple here, right? So we know the pain.
Ouch.
we thought we fixed it once again, but yeah, and it's tough, right? I mean, it's such a value position that you want to do and you want to get the top, but again, that's another point, right? Where it's great if you hit it, but you miss on so much that it's too tough.
Yeah, let's look back a couple of years ago. Jeff Okudah, who went number 3 to Detroit, and everybody was saying the same thing.
Oh, that was great pick. Oh yeah,
top pick coming out of Ohio State, which churns out great cornerbacks. Number 3 pick, and he's had 1 injury year and 1 down year, and now he's already about to start year 3, and he waits the number 3 pick on him.
Well, what about Denzel Ward? He's been pretty awesome, hasn't he?
He's been okay, but I mean, has he been completely locked down? He's been a good, and I think you do need good cornerbacks. But I don't think he's been top 5 quarterback. It's not to the point of that.
Good point. He might, so I don't think I have to make a pick for the Jets. We can move on to the Giants. Dawg has been chomping at the bit. This is.
Well, it's funny. I'm already stumped.
The whole dog off. I mean.
Dawg's been talking. I realize I can't be a general manager.
Dawg's been talking about the Giants with the 5th pick in the draft since like the second quarter of the first game of the season, I think.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I purposely put myself in the Payne's position. So I'll go for listeners on what I'm lying at this point. So I've got off my board, I have Hutchison, Neal, Ekwonu, and Gardner. They're pretty much 4 guys I would love to to have any of those guys for the Giants. So now I'm at this little sort of pain point here, and I'm looking at the third offensive tackle. I'm looking at need versus value right here, right? So this right here is where it's smacking me in the face.
Mhm.
Is that, can I take the risk of not once and for all, trying to fix the damn offensive line and just say, you know what, I got to take the third offensive tackle, even though I don't necessarily want to, and I got to do it. So there's Charles Cross from Mississippi State, right? So he's sort of the consensus one. Supposedly the Giants like him, so this is probably a fine, safe, mashed potatoes sort of pick, right? So it's good, it works, it does what you need to do. He's a right tackle for you. It is not to be the greatest, but it fills a hole and lets you move on to the rest of the team. So I've got that. I've got Trayvon Walker still on my board, who's a great edge rusher. Giants definitely need that as well. High value position, right? So you kind of get like your cap saving of not trying to buy this next year, that you get a top guy on there. I've also got Kyle Hamilton, quote unquote, the most talented guy in the draft, quote unquote, kind of like Saquon was. So once again, it's sort of like, is the positional value going to come back and bite me on that one? And I'll be honest, I'd love to trade back right here if I was allowed to do that in this one. Because frankly, I'm going to go Cross, and I already hate the pick. Right? I've literally just said it. But I'm already like, I could have gotten so much better at this draft. But I'm going to stick to Cross. I'm going to fix the damn line and move along.
A lot of fans are probably going to feel that way if they pick Cross, but Cross is actually a really good player. I think they would be very happy with Cross. And I do think if I was in your position with those people gone, I would go with Cross too. Luckily with mine, Neal is still available. So I think that's Neal.
We're praying for that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much what you said. They have to go offensive line. They have to fix that line. They technically should be taking two people on the line, but we'll go with just one for right now. They definitely need an offensive lineman. So whether it's Neal, whether it's Iguanu, whether it's Cross, they got to get one of them, and they will get one of them. So I think that has to be their first pick.
Okay, now I want to take the pause here, and I want to have each of you guys on your own rate the order in which you rank those three. The three offensive linemen that all project as tackles, although some of them have played the other positions in the past. Yeah. Pete, go ahead.
I go with Neal 1, Iguanu 2, and Cross 3.
Dawg?
No, I go the same with that one. I mean, Iguanu is supposedly a better pass protector, but I think especially for like a right tackle, I think you want to get more in the mauler, and I think Neal's the most polished of the three on there. So I agree. I would go with that. And like I said, either one of those top two is just like, it's already a phenomenal draft. So, and I think Cross is good too, despite my moaning. I'd actually
from the assessments that my research has yielded, Neal is kind of thought of as the guy who's really most ready to go day one, and could be played at multiple positions because he's already played three. But maybe his upside is not as high as Iguanu from NC State, and he's supposed to be the superior run blocker, whereas Cross played at Mississippi State, where it's basically a run and gun type offense, quick snaps. He's not doing much run blocking, so there's not even much evaluation of what kind of run blocker he may or may not be. Plus, he's also a little bit shorter in stature as well, and a more lean athlete. And, some perhaps worry about him not having enough bulk to be a left tackle, which is for the Giants. And, potentially you got to figure out Shane and Daboll. Are they going to say, we're going to leave Andrew Thomas there now that we got through a couple of years of him and he looked good last year as opposed to his rookie year? Or are we drafting one of these guys to be the right tackle? So what's your overview on that, Pete?
Yeah, because they're each different guys. Neil is the more wide guy. He's the one that is going to be hard to move because of the size. He fluctuates a lot in size, and that's something he's got to watch. And that's something that may knock him behind Aquanu because he's gotten up to 360. He's dropped down to 330. So he goes up and down in weight. And if you don't watch that can get out of hand really quick. So Aquanu is better, more stabilized with his weight. And like you said, I've actually heard a scenario where if they fell the right way, Giants will take Aquanu first. That would be number one on their board. They can actually move from the guard if they were able to get Cross with the number 7 pick, because that will completely stabilize the line. You got 2 stud guys in there. Your line is set now for the next 10 years. And Neil, I heard, is actually 3rd on their list. So it's weird in terms of what I think, in my opinion, what the order of the tackles are and what I hear the Giants order of the tackle is. So Aquanu, Cross, and then Neil is what I'm hearing that they may have as their order for it. And it may be because of what you said. Cross is probably the best pass blocker. He's more athletic on the outside. Aquanu is more versatile, while Neil is just more of his size, and he's more ready to play now because he played in the pro system at Alabama.
Dawg?
I'm going to go with Peter. It's I mean, I can't go anywhere close to that. Yeah, that sounds good to me.
So, Dawg, as a Giant fan / draftnik, is your dream scenario to have 2 of those guys drop past 4? And if so, do you take 2 of them, regardless of which 2?
I think my dream scenario is actually the edge rushers go early. So 1, 2, 3. So let's say one of the tackles goes, right? So assuming one that goes to one of the teams, and then the other 3 go edge rusher, and you're line 2 really good tackles, and you get a chance at getting either a Gardner or a Hamilton, whoever you think is best on the secondary side. And I guess you sort of make the call. Do you think the secondary guy could slide to 7, and you just pick your best lineman? That's probably the safest way. Or you say, you know what, I love Gardner. He's not going to get by. Number 6. Thank you. I kept on putting Jacksonville. I'm like, it's not Jacksonville. The other one down there. Carolina. That I say, you know what, I go with that, and I try and actually get a secondary and a tackle, because I think in terms of value, I do think when you look at the big picture on it, you might be putting too much draft capital, too much up front. Like, you've got your bookend tackles right there. You don't have, not everyone's got to be a top 10 pick on the line. And you do need to, again, where you kind of get the value of, like, do I build it or buy it, right? Can I get it from the draft? Like, where am I getting my value add? So if I can get a premier position with a high draft pick, then it's worth it. Like, if I'm drafting a guard 5 or 6, that's not as much of a value, right? Because I could probably get that for 10 to 12 for a good guy. In free agency, versus the tackle might be 20 now. You know, who knows? I mean, throwing a number out there, but it's going to be much higher than that. So I don't necessarily want to spend that kind of dough on a guard. I'd rather spend that draft capital and save me the money of buying either a tackle or a cornerback. And obviously quarterback being the top one there, that if you can get the rookie quarterback right, you've really hit the home run.
Yeah.
We're going to move to Carolina at 6 in a moment. The
license plate guy would love it. 9 men.
We're gonna move to Carolina at 6 in a moment. But Pete, I got a question for you, a Jet question.
Yeah.
Do the Jets strongly consider taking one of the linemen with their pick as insurance against Mekhi Becton eating himself out of the league? You sort of intimated that a little bit with Evan Neal being potentially the guy that you worry about. Well, that's Becton right now. Like, they're literally in that scenario 3 years on, right? Where if he's got it under control, he's a top guy, right? Like, I know there's no question. He does everything that you want, and he does it potentially exceedingly well. But if he's not managing his weight, you have a massive problem. Yeah. So do the Jets hedge there? Do they really strongly consider the insurance policy? Which, I mean, look, their offensive line is probably already pretty good heading into this season. Maybe, okay, it's a little insurance, so they'd still be good. And if Becton has his act together, maybe they're great. What do you think about that?
I think if Equano there is, that's going to be their pick. I think they really like him. I think he is the person that would be replacing Becton if he fell to number four. I just, in my scenario, I don't see how he's going to fall behind Houston, but if he does, I think that will be the pick. And like you said, if they're not going to pick Neal, they're not high on Neal because Neal could be what they have Becton already. So they're not going to pick him, and they think four is too early for Cross. So the only person that they would take in that spot will be Aquano. They think he can be their left tackle, or then even if they like him as a right tackle, George Fant was great at left tackle for them last year. Only gave up one sack all year. He was steady for them. He was really good for them. So no matter what, they have their two bookend tackles. If they decide to move on from Becton and Aquano is there for about four.
Okay, let's talk about the Panthers at 6. This is the probably the keystone of, I don't know if it's the keystone of the whole draft, but it's definitely the keystone of the top 10, where there's so much other stuff and all these picks could go a different way. But the reason is because everybody's wondering, are the Panthers going to reach for a quarterback? And let's face it, it would be a reach. If they pick a quarterback here, it's the same spot as the Giants picked Daniel Jones. That was a reach pick. Whether you love Jones, whether you hate Jones, whatever it is, he was going to be available later, and there's a couple of people who might dispute that, but at this point, not many. This would be a reach pick if they do it, but which way do the Panthers go, Pete?
I think they can go in one of two ways, and there's the only two positions I've heard spoken with them, and that's obviously quarterback and offensive line. In their mind, they would actually love to trade back. Of all the teams at the top 10, more than anybody, Giants probably second, but the Panthers want to trade back because they don't have that many picks. They want to gain some picks, move back into maybe the early teens, and then take one of those quarterbacks. But at number 6, I think it's too early for them to take a quarterback with one offensive of the top 3 offensive linemen left on my list. I think they take Charles Cross. So I don't think any of the 3 top offensive linemen make it past the top 6, and Cross will be gone with the Panthers.
Dawg?
I've got mine's a little. I totally agree with Peter on that. So for my board, I've got the tackles off the board, the top 3 tackles off the board. So I am, like I said, I'm dying to trade back on here. For almost giggles, I almost feel like throwing in Willis in there and just having a little fun with it as the quarterback in there. I think just to try and keep it somewhat straight, I still have Trayvon Walker. So I think just in terms of a value pick on there, I'm going to wind up popping him down for Carolina. But again, this would be another one I agree that if they could trade, that's actually the right move here to trade out and get that down. And someone else is going to value the edge rusher more than him. So it's just kind of it's sort of best player available, frankly, at that spot, and doesn't really necessarily fit the need that they have.
I'll tell you what, the Giants will be dying if Trayvon Walker made it to them. So just him making it one spot in front of them, it could be like Steph Curry going to one spot in front of the Knicks. It could really bother them for years to come, because I really like Trayvon Walker too.
Would you think would the Giants trade up? Let me throw that one out there.
I was going to say that.
I mean,
what about them trading up a spot?
See, you talked about your perfect scenario of the Giants. My perfect scenario for the Giants is getting a big-time pass rusher and a big-time offensive lineman. So if they got the big-time offensive lineman already at number 7, it would be perfect if one of those big pass rushers, one of the big 4, fell to them. That would be great.
Yeah.
Which one do you grab then if you have, like, if you could be in a scenario then, Peter, where at 5 the Giants could know that 2 of 3 are available and that they're going to get one of each, right? Like you could know that for sure by 5.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, they just sit there. But if only 2 of 2 are available, maybe they do jump up and give the Panthers just a little something to switch picks and essentially prevent of course it's going to be the Eagles from jumping in and getting whoever they want. Because the Eagles are always in the middle of whatever bad things happen to the Giants, which, by the way.
Well, hopefully we get rid of our spy.
Yeah. It's like the whole Gettleman era to me was Dog's heard me say this a million times, but but I never get to talk about it on the air because we're always talking about baseball. But even when he was right, he was still wrong. He made everybody's like, oh, the Giants have 2 picks because of the Justin Fields deal. I'm like, would you really rather have this pick in Kadarius Toney than Micah Parsons? I wouldn't, and I don't know a human being who would want that. And that's what was sitting there for. He was gift wrapped for them to just take him.
Yep.
And if we did this show last year, Dawg would have known. I was 100% sure they were getting him. And then when the Eagles traded up to take Devontae Smith, I'm like, oh my God, they did that. And then they trade down. I'm like, and then the Cowboys take him, of course. And now that's why you need to take 2 offensive linemen.
Well,
because now fucking Micah Parsons is there to terrorize us for the next 10 years.
It's funny let's sort of play it back to a little bit. What was part of the story of trading for next year though? Was that all the guys stayed in for COVID? It's gonna be a super draft in 2022, right? So you have guys who stayed in an extra year to prove out.
Yeah.
And the line was, you got 2 high picks, therefore you can go up and get the quarterback if Jones doesn't work out. After we fix the line, of course, and we're going to see what he looks like this past year, right? So of which the line didn't work. Jones is still a question, right? We're right back where we were last year, right? Jones line sucks. Jones is a question mark. And there's no quarterback to get. That's the funny thing. I was looking at all these things trade down to 7 or trade down to 5 and get the pick next year. I'm like, the problem next year is now there seems like there's more quarterbacks next year, but there's also 5 more teams who are trying to gun for it. I was just playing around with, trade down to 7. What do you have for next year? So say the Giants have 9 or 10, right? And they get Pittsburgh's pick or something like that. Or they trade down to get the 20 this year and then a 1 next year or something. If you have a 10 and a 20, I'm like, you're not getting anything. Yeah. You're going to get the 7 you had this year. Right? Is what you're going to get. So that's what I mean. It's hard. This one is a hard job.
Yeah, it is. And the thing that you mentioned is that, and you mentioned the exact team. If the Giants are going to say, all right, we still want to look towards possibly getting a quarterback next year, they're going to have to trade that 7 pick. And the team that would be perfect for that would be a team like Pittsburgh because they're so high on Malik Willis right now. So that's a team that you have to look for. The Saints are another team they have to look for. Those teams that want quarterbacks but aren't the teams and they have the ammo to get up there, those are the teams you're going to have to look for.
For Peter, let's play a little bit more on the Giants one here. So Giants is sitting there at 7. So I'm good. I can get an edge rusher for the way my board fell. Yeah. You can get another, solid lineman and whatnot. So that's kind of what you're staring at for the Giants. Saints call with 16 and 19. Do you take that, or do you take Pittsburgh 20 and 1 next year? Or we're not going to get either one, or we should take either of them. Basically, if you're 7, what do you think the best outcome is for a trade? I
think the best outcome is a 20 and 1 next year. And I say that because I love what the Eagles did when they had 3 first-round picks, and they pretty much gave 1 New Orleans to get a couple more picks this year, but mostly importantly, 1 next year, because you're trading with a team. The thing about it, and this was the part where you talked about that the Giants actually did right last year, when they traded with Chicago, they knew Chicago wasn't going to be a good team. So they're going to have a rookie quarterback. So you're going to have a high pick from that. And if you're not good, you're going to have another high pick. So you shouldn't have a 10 and a 20. You should have maybe a 7 and a 10. And with that, you can get into the top 5. So I think at that point right there, if it's the Steelers, you take that because you don't expect the Steelers to be good next year, not with a rookie quarterback. The Saints possibly could be because they're not going to be starting a rookie quarterback. They're starting Jameis, but you have to look for teams that you don't think are going to be good. They're going to be starting that rookie quarterback and they're going to struggle. So I think the Steelers are the team that you mentioned that would work with that scenario.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So who are the Giants ending up with, Dawg, with their 5 and their 7 here in your scenario?
Oh, I should talking about this, right? So let's say I gave him Cross and I had Walker go off. So I'm actually going to take Johnson and get my edge on there. So
Okay.
so I have Cross and then Jermaine Johnson.
Pete?
Now, if we're talking about what I would do, I would take Thibodeau so they get the pass rusher. So you have him and you have Neal. So you have your offensive lineman, you have your pass rusher. I think that they're gonna. In my scenario, Gardner's still available. I think they snatch up Gardner at 7.
I love that. That's actually my dream going into it is Neil Gardner. It's funny because whenever I've been playing mocks, I've always feared Gardner not making it to 7, so I always want to kind of grabbing him 5 and going the other guy 7. But I like your scenario more because I'd be freaking. If I'm
Here's the
I'm
thing,
like,
though.
I'm like, the Saints are going to jump up to 6 and freaking take Neil, and I'll be all pissed off if he's throwing stuff to the TV. So I like to just get Neil done.
I could totally see Neal as a Saint. That just
He
just seems like such a Saint.
That would be worse than the Eagles move last year. That would rip my soul.
I think so. Peter, you talked about the Steelers being really high on Malik Willis,
Yes.
the quarterback from Liberty University. But if Sauce Gardner is there at 7, to me, he seems like the guy that more teams would be willing to jump up and make a trade to get. So that presents a real interesting scenario for the Giants because you figure, they're not going to be ready to contend here. Like they got, Shane and Daboll are talking about, essentially the rebuild, stripping it down to the studs, which is something the Maras really haven't wanted to do because they didn't want to bottom out, and yet they have the worst record in the league over the last 6 years anyway. Yeah. So, now they bring in this group to kind of do that. And whereas in the end, Gardner might end up being the best player in this entire draft, he just might not. He might, by the time he's ready to help you, he might be ready to move on already somewhere else. So, and to me, he's the guy that I feel like a lot of teams would say, man, we got to move up to get this guy. Let's pull the trigger, right? The Vikings,
right.
the Vikings. I can't, the Vikings at 12. How are the Vikings not salivating over that guy?
They desperately want a cornerback. They want one of those two, whether it's Stingley or Gardner. That is the guy that the Vikings want. And I mentioned that they may be the team to try to trade up to get one of them. I agree with you that more teams would want Gardner, but the bigger package always comes to the quarterback. So you're going to have more teams interested in Gardner, but you want the bigger package. You're going to have to sell, as in you're selling off the quarterback. You're going to have to make teams believe that the Falcons are willing to take a quarterback.
How about you were talking how hard it is to pick a corner, and I think on your pod you were talking even safety versus corner.
Yeah.
So line at 7, Giants have a choice of Gardner or Hamilton.
Yeah.
Why Gardner versus Hamilton?
And that's more because of the scheme. Because of the defense that the Giants will be running cornerback, they highlight the cornerback more. They put him on an island more. That's not usual to most teams now. Most teams, they always have the safety cover over the top, make sure nobody gets behind the last line of defense. But they're more aggressive with their defense. So the cornerback has to be good in their defense, which is why I would be even more worried, because you're either going to turn him into a star real fast or he's going to be burned out real fast. So I'd rather do the traditional safety on top. He does the quarterbacking back there. In this scenario,
so you think we're screwed anyway? Yeah. Even though we got our dream scenario, we're still screwed. This is hard being a fan.
Perfectly, but it's a big risk.
Gotcha.
I don't know, Pete. You're kind of making the case for him with the Giants because look at the other teams in their division. He's got a better chance, against Jalen Hurts and whoever is under center for the Commanders, and obviously Dak is head and shoulders above every other quarterback in the division, but they're in a little bit of a transition there without Amari Cooper. I mean, they still have weapons, but if you could take one of them away, maybe he has a little bit of a soft landing to stardom in that case, based on the division and 6 games out of the 17, that's who he's got to play against. That's that's a little bit more attractive, maybe. I think you
Well,
might have just changed my pick.
well,
Gravy.
you also got to remember one thing. He played at Cincinnati. Cincinnati isn't a Power Five school. He hasn't gone against top tier wide receivers. He's played against some good teams. Obviously, he played against Alabama, but he hasn't faced a whole schedule of top teams. So there is still limited tape on him against the top value wide receivers. So he's going to have to go against Devontae Smith, who was great in college also. He's going to have to obviously go against the Cowboys wide receivers with Lamb and all the people they have there. They may take a wide receiver. And then he's going to have to go against Galladay, who had a bad year last year, but when he actually has a quarterback that can throw on the ball, he can go over the top of people. So he just outmuscles you. So he's going to definitely be put into some tough situations. It seems like it's going to be a soft landing, but he's still going to have a rough going his first year when he's going against guys like that.
All right. We made it through the top 7. Let's do a couple more before we tell you how we got here and who's keeping us afloat on a weekly basis here on Diamond Diehards. Falcons at 8. This is another one where we're talking about possibly a quarterback or like whether it's the Falcons or they trade down. This seems like if a quarterback is going in the first round, this is this spot where it really might well happen.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. And for a while, I had Malik Willis falling here or the Panthers, and I actually have both been taking a quarterback at one point. I now think that they're going to go, and the reason why I think they're going to go this way is because they don't care about this year at all. Some teams are rebuilding, but they still care about development and getting better each year. Falcons really don't care at all this year. They're pretty much selling off. They jettison Matt Ryan away. They're completely starting over. They have Mariota there, but he's just there on a 2-year deal, cheap deal. They don't really care. I think they're going to go with Jameson Williams, a wide receiver. And the reason why is because a lot of teams are scared off by Jameson Williams because he's probably not going to play for about half of the first year. He's coming off an ACL injury. And he's somebody that if he didn't tear his ACL, probably 90%, 95% of media would have him as the clear number 1 wide receiver. He was dominant his last year before he got hurt in the bowl game. So I think he's the guy that they can bring him in. We see if Calvin Ridley comes back after a year suspension or whatever. And now you have 2 loaded wide receivers on the outside with Kyle Pitts on the inside. And now you just need to bring a quarterback, and he has all the weapons at his disposal.
Dog, what do you got?
I agree. I think they're going to go wide receiver as well. I think that's sort of just a value one for them. And again, I just don't see him. I don't see him going for Willis. I just don't. If it is that early, I do agree. I think it's either the Carolina or the Atlanta pick. I just don't think guys are juiced enough on that. So I'll mix it up. I'll go with Garrett Wilson from Ohio State. And I think really it's kind of choice on those guys. I mean, that Williams is a bigger target, so he may be a better fit for like a young quarterback coming in and following on. I think Wilson's a really special player. And I think I think either one's a great fit for that spot.
Okay. Seahawks at 9. Well, they would be the team that's the example of don't draft a safety very high because you're going to end up trading 2 first-round picks to get one later on. They are at number 9. This is the pick they got from Denver in the Russell Wilson deal. So here, as we approach with the Jets on deck, are they going to be looking at similar players? The Seahawks have a lot of holes that sort of, it comes at you quick, man. You take that superstar quarterback out of the mix and, he makes up for a heck of a lot of warts. And now, they could basically go anywhere with this pick, Pete. Can't they?
I completely agree. This is one of the hardest of the top 10 picks to actually decide where they're going to go because they have so many holes, like you said, and they can go quarterback, they can go wide receiver to supplant with DK and Lockett because they may lose DK in a year. So they have so many different ways they can go. I think this is finally the landing spot for one of the quarterbacks. I think they take Kenny Pickett instead of Malik Willis. The reason why is because I think he's similar to Russell Wilson. I would say if you're going to compare Malik Willis to somebody, it's closer to Lamar Jackson. While I think if you're going to compare Kenny Pickett to somebody, it will be more Russell Wilson because they're mobile in the pocket, they're better pocket passers, and they're smart players. I think he's the most ready quarterback of all the quarterbacks that are coming out this year. And I think for somebody like Pete Carroll, I think he's going to want somebody who's ready made like Russell Wilson was to come in and start the first year. So I think Kenny Pickett goes to Seattle.
Dog, what do you got?
I'm gonna go with Thibodeau. That he finally people think he's slid enough at this point. So I think he still has tremendous talent, and hopefully Pete Carroll can unlock it for him and do a good job with the young guy.
So the Oregon kid just goes a couple miles north. Is that we're locking it in, and then they have to look. Bobby, like we're talking about Russell Wilson, but Bobby Wagner's gone. You could argue that's an equally big loss, right? So they have plenty to move on from. What about them trading down and just trying to get more draft capital? Do they leverage that spot if they can?
Who jumps up for what though? That's the problem.
Well, the corners, right? The corners or anybody in the defensive backfield, like you got the possibility that Gardner could be there, that Stingley could be there, that Hamilton could be there, and even if those guys are gone and somebody's dead, if there's a run on those guys and somebody's like, you know what, we better get Trent McDuffie before he's off the board. I mean, it's all possible that those guys could go, right?
Yeah, if there's a team that's going to trade up, it will be Minnesota because Minnesota really wants a cornerback. So I can see them moving up there. Other than them, I don't see the other teams as teams that want to move up for a corner.
Okay, let's. We're gonna tease you a little bit. We're gonna make you wait for the Jets' second pick because you need to know about a couple of things and 4 sponsors that are keeping us here. As everybody else takes a drink and catches a breath. Gatto Acupuncture and Wellness in Glen Rock, New Jersey. If you are feeling the pain like we all are, and listen, after the Giants and Jets blow their picks, you're going to want a little stress relief. So go to Gatto Acupuncture and Wellness in Glen Rock, New Jersey. Book online at Gatto Acu, GATTOACU.com, or call 551-212-3845. Gatto Acupuncture and Wellness, Glen Rock, New Jersey, 551-212-3845, or book online at Gatto Acu, GATTOACU.com. These new draft picks are going to be coming in, and they're going to need a place to live. So I encourage them, if they're listening to the show, to contact the Mascolo Group, serving all of your real estate needs in the Northern Valley, Pascack Valley, and all of Northern New Jersey. Go to GaryMascolo.com, GaryMascolo.com, or call 201-615-3665. If you're looking to buy a place, if you're looking to sell your place, if you're looking to rent a place or rent your place, the Mascolo Group is where you need to go. Once again, GaryMascolo.com, or call 201-615-3665. Now, the other two that you're probably more familiar with, FMSgraphics.com is a family-run, family-owned business for the last 50 years, covering all of your printing and promotional needs. Go to FMSgraphics.com for all your printing and promotional needs. You can take care of it in a matter of a few clicks and get the word out. Hey, if you were just with the Mascolo Group and you changed addresses and you want to send out change of address cards, you could have them done through FMSgraphics.com, so go do that. You can't be driving around if you're a first-round pick in a dirty ride, Dog, can you? No, you cannot. So for those new draft picks or the existing players, you might spot them in the Bergen and Passaic County area in New Jersey at Big Ed's Car Wash in Fairlawn. Ed has a 118-foot tunnel. He does everything clean and green. Your car, inside and out, comes out of that place looking extra special, a little bit better than the other places that I've gone to. I am biased, I admit it, but it is the truth. And for some reason, when I take my vehicles through Big Ed's car wash, they stay cleaner longer. So now that it is the springtime and it's draft time, got to get those new draft picks and their rides to Big Ed's car wash in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, just across the Pascack River from Route 20 in Patterson. Big Ed's car wash, Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Okay, we did that. We strategically placed right before the Jets pick to round out the top 10, their second pick. So let's give a reminder. Pete, who did you have the Jets picking at 4?
I had them taking Jermaine Johnson, the pass rusher from Florida State.
Okay, and Dawg, who's on mute. We'll remind him to get off mute, which he does. Seamless. You at 4 had the Jets picking.
I have them taking Sauce Gardner. So,
okay. Gravy. We call him Gravy. Okay. Pete, where do the Jets go at 10?
I think they go wide receiver. I think they need something on the offensive side. They need to give Zach Wilson another weapon. Obviously, they brought in 2 great tight ends this offseason, and they already have Corey Davis out there. They re-signed Barrios. They have more out there. But I think they need to bring somebody that is a great route runner. He's a fast runner. He's probably the most complete wide receiver in this draft right now, and that's Garrett Wilson from Ohio State. I think he's a guy who, like Dawg said, he may go a little bit earlier. You got to watch out with Atlanta taking him because he is rumored to be one of their favorites also. But if he falls to the Jets, I think he has to be their pick. You have him and Corey Davis on the outside, and then you have Zuma and Conklin and Barrios and more on the inside. I think you have now given Wilson as much weapons as he needs to be successful, and then it's just up to him.
Dawg, what do you think?
Pretty much spot on there. I'm just I'm doing the flip side because I had Wilson going 8, so I'm going with Williams for the Jets as well. Same as Zach Reese's nice big target. What else could you want for a young quarterback? So I think it's a perfect fit.
So you're not worried that he's probably not going to be showing up on the field until halfway to the middle of the season there, if you're the Jets?
Yeah, I don't think they're going for the Super Bowl, right? So I would say you do have to kind of build. I mean, like people were saying. I mean, he has targets out there too as well. So I mean, it's not like you're getting an offensive tackle who's not going to be there for half the season. I mean, he has other targets to come around, and then he has one more target coming later on in the season, and then going forward as well. So I think it's a value play for them, and I think it's a smart move.
Okay.
If Atlanta doesn't take him first. So.
Okay, so you guys both think that Jameson Williams is on most of these boards. I mean, he's going later than that. In the end, it just seems like he's a little too much of a talent to kind of pass up, especially for these teams that don't, unless they're talking about a miracle quick turnaround, are not going to be contending. So really, it's not that big a deal if he's just around the facility and as opposed to being on the field. That's the consensus with you guys.
Yeah, I think he's going to be special. I think once he recovers from that ACL injury, I think he has Tyreek Hill type speed. I think he's a game breaker. And all you have to do is look at the tape. He's running in the SEC. Now, he previously ran with Ohio State for a couple of years, but even if you look at Ohio State tape, he was always behind the defense in his limited playing time. With Alabama and the SEC, anybody you talk to that watches SEC football is a different type of athlete, is a different type of speed, and he outruns them like they're nothing. And when you have that type of speed, I think that teams that pass over him are going to be regretting it for years to come. It's like one of those things where not as much, but similar to the teams that passed over Randy Moss.
I was kind of thinking of that, but it's a totally different reason.
Yeah.
But it is, the fact that you're talking about wide receiver and game breaker and things like that. The landscape is a little bit different though, because there's more of a premium on guys now that can do that. Whereas during Moss's time, there wasn't as much. Like there was a lot more safe picking going on. That was more common. There were less, purposeful dart throws. I mean, now we still see teams throwing darts. It's just that, they think that they're not. That's the problem. Okay, so we've completed the top 10 that way. What to do about, the next 22, right? Like I suppose there's a way to kind of
line an hour.
Yeah, we're lying in an hour.
We haven't touched baseball.
Yeah, we haven't touched baseball. The teams, who we could just sort of sum it up this way.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think drops, and who do you think rises? And I'll throw that one to Peter first.
I think one person that is going to drop is Trent McDuffie. McDuffie is getting a lot of hype right now for being maybe 12th to the Vikings, like we talked about. They want a cornerback. But I think if he does not go 12, I think he drops all the way to 2021, right where the Patriots pick. So I just don't see the teams that are in the teens picking him. They don't really want cornerbacks in that group. They mostly want wide receivers, offensive linemen. So I think he can take a big stumble fall if he isn't taken early. One of the people that I think that's rising, I think I already named him, in Jameson Williams. I think a lot of people are picking him in the teens or maybe low teens, and I think he's going to be a top 10 pick because when it comes down to it, they're going to say he's just too talented to pass up.
Dawg, what do you think? Riser and dropper?
Dropper, I think it's kind of a duke out between Thibodeau and Hamilton, and I think both would be undeserved, but kind of for different reasons and stuff, right? So I think Hamilton is sort of like the positional value argument, and people just saying like we just don't feel comfortable taking a safety that high, and he's just kind of like a special player, right? I mean, he's just like one of those things that you just looks at as like that guy's a player. He should be out there, and like 2 years from now, everyone's gonna be like, we should have taken this guy, right? But I think a lot of people are gonna be like running down, kind of like hitting their board or whatever. Like he's not necessarily the perfect fit on there. But like he's just one of those 4 guys you want to have in your backfield, and he's gonna find a way to kind of make stuff happen. And I could just kind of see it, just sort of the way the board's kind of lining up, that like we get through a couple guys who could get it. Like we were sort of saying the top 10, it was like, is it Gardner? Is it Hamilton? Like there's a couple close ones like that. And then I kind of think you could go into the whole like wide receiver, cornerback, like run. And just that kind of takes you down to like the down to the 20s for Hamilton, even though you could probably argue he's got the talent to go there. And Thibodeau, I'm just thinking that he might just have turned people off. And people were like, you know what? I got flags, and I'm not going to take a risk on flags. There's 5 other great edge rushers I can get in here that are all solid. I don't need to take a chance. I don't need to get fired over this guy not necessarily wanting to put in the effort.
Okay, Pete.
I think that's more of a reach. I think Hamilton is a more likely one to drop than frankly Thibodeau. I think he's just got too much talent. I think someone's going to say, "To heck with it, we'll make it work." But I could actually see him kind of sliding down, surprisingly as well.
Pete, you expect the Giants and Jets to, come out of this draft as winners and feeling good from a fan and a public perspective, or you think, what's the percentage chance that they screw it up?
I think it's a very low percentage that they can screw it up, just because when you have 2 top 10 picks, and then you're going to, especially the Jets, they're going to have 2 high second round picks, and the Jets will have 2 second round picks, and the Giants will have 1 second round pick. And even the Jets in the third round have a pick, and the Giants have 2 more. So you have 5 picks right there that essentially people are going to look at as starters. Even if you hit on half of them, you've gotten 3 starters into your team with 2 top 10 picks. You have to be happy no matter what.
Dawg, Giants or Jets gonna screw this up?
Yeah, I think the Jets have been doing a very good job, though. Actually, I guess Becton's sort of freaking out, right? I thought Becton was a great pick, whatever. Now we're just talking about we got to draft over him already. So maybe it takes the bloom off the rose a little bit. But I think in general, I think the Jets have kind of been setting that organization up the right way. I think they're building it the right way. So I think I see no reason why they wouldn't continue to do so. And again, I sort of dig like the 4-10 kind of split within there too. So I think that's a safe way to kind of get value out of this draft as well. So I might anticipate the Jets doing that. And Shane has shown a talent for doing it with Buffalo. So so I would anticipate, again, like we sort of laid out. I mean, 5 and 7. I mean, there's a ton of good talent sitting on there. I guess the only thing I could say is, do you risk it or go for the home run? Like, does Shane go for the trade down, right? And I think that's actually the way to truly unlock value for this, especially for the amount of needs the Giants have. Like, I wouldn't necessarily do that for the Jets. I think it's more important to get the premier picks for the Jets. I think the Giants just need more of the base across. So that's, I mean, like, that 16, 19 or 20 and a 1, I think is actually the best move for the Giants. The 20 and the 1 is probably the kick in the can down the road. That actually, if I'm going to do a trade down, that actually feels like a fairly safe trade down for Shane, right? I can sort of say, like, you know what? I've got a pretty good one next year in case everything doesn't go the way I thought it was going to go when I built my team for the first time. So, I don't know. So long story short, I guess I think they're going to work it out either way. And there's interesting, I think there's interesting optionality kind of all around with the Giants.
Be careful. Be careful when you think the Steelers are going to be bad. Mike Tomlin will go as far as tying the Detroit Lions to make sure he's never had a season under 500. Just remember that, okay? He never has, and he did that. He tied the Lions and got to exactly 500 in his 17-game schedule. I have one. I'll give you one more angle on the Giants, and then we could switch over to do a little bit of baseball to close it out.
Chris is just running out the baseball because the Mets are doing so well. By the way, we all know that.
Dude, how about like I had this sick trip to Detroit, and we didn't even talk about that. So one angle on the Giants. Mm-hmm. Now I'm not one of these, and I know I am in the vast minority. I'm not ready to throw away Daniel Jones yet. I'm not.
I agree too.
Because
you know that.
Because you have a new
knows what we do, and he's grown him.
You just look at what he's been through the first few years, and it's hard for me to say the jury is still completely out on him. And it's more a matter of, okay, but what are you going to replace him with? So here's the thing. Let's say 2 of those linemen are available in those first 7 picks. If you get 2 of them and you're playing one of them at right tackle, you already have your left tackle, and you put the other one in a guard position, and now all of a sudden you're protecting Daniel Jones, who's never been protected before. He doesn't necessarily have to be that superstar quarterback, because you don't have to pay him like a superstar quarterback, and that gives you $20 million extra in order to fill out the rest of your roster, which is something they desperately need to do. So the fact that you could protect him a little bit better, maybe, instead of Kenny Golladay just having every pass go off his fingertips, maybe he waits a half second more and those balls are in his hand, and, he starts looking like Kenny Golladay again. So there's an angle there for me where, and listen, Pete, I know you hate him, but
not that I hate him. I just don't think he's
doesn't like
good.
Nice guy.
I've seen him in college. I saw him at Duke, and he does the same thing that he's doing now. He turned the ball over then. He fumbled a lot then. He's just the same person. It's like, I understand that we want to think he can grow and do better because he was young coming in, but some people just don't get better, and I don't see him getting better.
Well, I think he kind of fixed the fumbling problem last year. I don't think that was an issue for him last year.
Yeah, he set out after a year hurt. That's what he did.
That's one way to do it.
I actually think beginning of last season, despite the team being terrible, I actually thought Jones was actually playing okay. I wouldn't say not the first month. Let's say sort of month 2 or so, when they started to stabilize a little bit. I thought he was actually doing okay and keeping him in games where really the rest of the team sucked, frankly. And I think when he went down, you really saw just how bad the Giants were when you take out. I mean, if you take out a mediocre quarterback and put in a lousy quarterback, you shouldn't go from having to run, QB sneaks to punt against the Dolphins, right? I mean, let's sort of set the scale of what you were dealing with there, which gets our leads to the trade down because we've got holes everywhere.
That was really bad. That was terrible.
Yeah.
Right. So that's, I mean, you really do have to consider where he was in the context of there.
Yeah, but I could say this, and as a Titans fan, being in the middle of the road is the worst place to be. You either want to suck or you want to be good. And if he's even average or slightly above average, then he's going to keep you in the middle of the road, and then you're just going to be doing the same thing every single year.
We're in QB hell.
Well, you gotta bottom out with somebody.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is they don't have a choice this year, so it's kind of a moot point. Unless I did see one crazy mock go with someone saying it. Actually, it might have been on your pod as well. Someone's throwing out at 7 taking Willis. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, now I tell you what, I don't know if I necessarily love that at 7, but if I did that Saints trade down, I did 16 and 19, and I go to 16 at Willis. I don't hate that flyer on that one. I'm like, you know what, you might get lightning in a bottle on that one and save your bacon on it.
Yeah, you're getting your
worst case, you cost yourself a guard you got to pay for, right? And you could have drafted it, instead you got to buy it in the offseason.
You absolutely cannot do that unless you're putting Jones in the deal. Like it doesn't make sense to use your draft capital
he's gone up to next year.
On him.
What are you going to get for him?
Because he should be gone this year. It's the Eli mistake.
Sure.
It's the Eli mistake. It's the Eli mistake. You got to get him. You get him off your books before you waste your high pick on that. It doesn't make any sense. That's what Gettleman would do.
It's only a year left, dude. There's not that he's a free agent after next year.
The one reason to keep him on your team if you were to take Willis is Willis may not be ready to start game 1. So you may want to have him sit on the bench for half a season and then get ready to start, kind of like Eli did with his. You don't want him.
They got Tyrod Taylor. I mean, they if they had to, they could merge it there. But yeah, I mean, if you could trade Jones for any value, then yes, I would say you do that. I'd be surprised if that actually pulls out.
It's gonna be funny if Tyrod Taylor is the starter by the end of the year over Jones.
Oh boy, that's a toughie.
I always felt like Tyrod Taylor doesn't sound like an NFL quarterback as much as he sounds like he should be like a NASCAR crew chief.
Yes.
Like he should have been like Jeff Gordon's crew chief. Yeah. Just, Tyrod Taylor pulled me into the pits and, we had to change all 4 and just get a splash down. And, then we were able to beat Jeff Burton for the last 3 laps. And, that's why Tyrod Taylor's the best crew chief in all of NASCAR. But he's a good quarterback too when he's not getting injected in the heart or whatever, in the lung. He's not getting his lung punctured by the trainer, forcing the team to move from San Diego to Los Angeles. I'm sorry, did I just equate 2 things that have nothing to do with one another? Let's talk.
Totally lost right now.
Let's talk about basebrawls. Oh boy. Where do we start? The Mets through 19 or 20 games have been hit by 17 pitches, and they just got a little too tired of it. It's 19 games or 19 pitches?
19 pitches. So I know it's one off. So I think it's 19 in 20 games.
Okay.
It was 18 of 19. They got hit again today. And
okay.
That apparently was finally the final straw.
Yeah. So there's a lot of talk, and their own Chris Bassett just completely trashed Major League Baseball and said, everybody knows the balls are a mess. They you can't control them and whatever. Meanwhile, the pitchers are having a problem. Meanwhile, the league's hitting like 223, but the pitchers are having a problem. Like they can't control the ball. Nobody could hit, but whatever. So they took exception, and the new kid on the block decides to throw. I mean, let's face it. This was Roger Clemens to Manny Ramirez, right? It's an eye level pitch that is not even close. Yeah. And Arenado loses his shit. Tells him you want a piece of me or whatever he said. Yeah. And so the Mets and the Cardinals bench is empty, and Nolan Arenado doesn't have to fight anybody, and he doesn't have to get hit by a pitch, and now they can sort of say that perhaps the hatchet is buried, right? But at what point are we looking at this and saying, like, we have to take each hit batsman case by case,
Yeah.
right? And you can't like I haven't seen all of them, Dawg and Peter, but I have seen a lot of them, and they just have not looked intentional. And I don't think pitchers throw at players' heads
No.
intentionally. So Pete Alonso getting beaned twice. Um, that's just I don't know if it's bad luck, bad skill, whatever. Um, the part where I really come down is you're a major league pitcher. Like, you got to be able to control that ball. And if not, you just don't belong in the bigs, and that's it.
Yeah.
But again, it comes down, this is the Daniel Jones argument. Who are you going to replace him with? Right? Who's replacing these guys? Who are the guys that are delivering these hit by pitches? And when you look at it, it's pitchers all across the spectrum.
Yeah.
So, Dawg, as a Met fan, okay, I'm sure you liked that.
They're a bunch of dirty dogs that deserve to get drilled. That was it. I mean, the funny thing is, like, they're not even like diving over the plate or like crowding the plate or anything else like that. I mean, literally just hanging out. And I do fully concede it. At least half are like, they're like curveballs or whatever. Like, it's not. It's a weird. Those are just like weird coincidences, right? Where they're just getting away from guys and stuff like that. But like, you get 3 guys drilled in the head. 2 of them being Alonso, right? I mean, I don't know. It start crossing the line. I mean, it's not like you're off a little bit or even start brushing back. Like, dude, you can't be missing by 2 feet if you're a major league. I mean, that's like bad if you're like 14U and my son's playing, right? That you can get away with that. This is a major league pitcher where you're aiming with your aim point is inches. You're talking, and he's missing by 2 feet and hitting the guy in the head. That happens once, maybe twice, right? You start talking 5-10 times, hitting the guys. I don't know. There's something ain't right.
The only thing I'll say about it is that you look like Joe said, you have to take on a case by case basis, and when you look at that, you start off with the opening series of the year, Washington Nationals, and Washington has one of the worst bullpens in baseball, so they're going to have wild pitchers, and their pitchers hit Alonso a couple times. If you take it on a case by case basis, there's a lot of bad pitchers, especially middle relievers in baseball, that shouldn't be even in the majors. But the way they've been raised into the league, more and more in the minor leagues, is throw harder and harder and harder, and it's less control. And we're going to have people get hit more and more, and it's just bad that it's happening to one team. I remember last year where you had Duvall getting hit like 10, 15 times. The year before that, you had Acuna getting hit like 15, 20 times. It's like you can't really, they're not intentional, and you could tell some of them are. Some of them may be pushing the line, but like Joe said, you don't really see people aiming at the head. They'll aim at like their backside, or they'll aim at their hip and stuff like that. But when you people getting hit in the head, you don't usually see that. When you do see that and it's on purpose, those guys are going to get suspended. And it's pretty obvious when those happen. The way it's happening right now, it's almost like, you don't want to say it's a coincidence, but it's just a lot of bad pitching in the league right now.
No, you're on mute, Riz.
Bad pitching, but the league average is it's so low. I mean, it's bad hitting too. It's bad pitching and bad hitting. What about let's talk a little Mets Braves here, right? So you got the Mets at 14-6 as we speak, with a gaudy plus 33 run difference, which is a factor now. That's Dawg's Mets, and Peter's Braves, the defending world champs, doing a repeat of last season, 8-10 and -12.
Yeah.
So when are they going to kick it in? They're waiting for Acuna. What is he? Mid-May still? They're talking about.
Well, May 6th is the day, so he's actually should be coming. They're thinking that he'll be back actually before that date, so we may see him in like a week. So because he's already been playing every day in the minor leagues, hasn't had any setbacks. He's looked good in the field. He's stolen bases. He has over 1,000 OPS. So he's looking like he's ready to come up in about a week. But I don't think they're waiting for him. I think one of the issues with the Braves is they have a lot of they're depending a lot on their pitchers right now, and pretty much a lot of these pitchers are pretty much just ending spring training in their mind. Everything's been shortened, and I think that also adds to what we were talking about with people getting hit, is that a lot of these pitchers have not gone through a full spring training yet. They're pretty much forcing it before what they would normally do. We see in spring training, they start off slow, 3 innings, then 5 innings, then they ramp it up for the regular season. They didn't have a chance to do it this year. They had a month to get ready, and you can see them now starting to get into order. So I think the Braves will probably kick it into gear probably in another month or so when everybody's back and all the pitchers are back in normal rotation. But right now, it's hard, especially in a 162-game season period. It's always hard to look in the first month. You love to see the reactions off the first month of the season, but still a long way to go.
So Dawg and I both picked the Braves, I think, for a second, and certainly for a wild card. Dawg picked the Mets. I picked the Phillies to win. Now, there's a lot of shit being thrown at the Phillies right now. What are they doing? They were 6-10. They've won 2 in a row heading into the game that they're playing as we're doing this. But here's the interesting thing. The Phillies have yet to play a team that is under 500. So their schedule, the way it's panned out early, has been a little bit of the opposite of the Mets schedule. I think the Mets are like 5-2 now against teams that are over 500. But that's 18 out of 18 games for the Phils to start out, where they're playing, some teams that are overperforming like Colorado, but other teams that are already over 500 to start the season. I think this is going to be a really interesting division. And the Marlins, man, they are such a wild card because every time you turn them on, they got some guy that could just pitch. I mean, if they hit like
never heard of this guy.
I know, but they're all good. They're all the same guy.
And they own the Phillies. They destroy the Phillies every year.
I know. It's the Real Muto factor. It's so funny that it's so early, but the NL Central is just already panning out exactly the way that you figured it would. Like the Brewers are in first, the Cardinals are sort of, they're close behind. The Pirates are, somehow in third, but they're under 500. The Cubs are right behind them.
Rental.
The Cubs are right behind them, and the Reds are going to get relegated to AAA practically. And the NL West, the Giants just surprising people again, 13-5. It's not a fluke anymore. All the guys pitch. They use everybody on the roster, and they are out for blood every inning of every game. They're bunting with a 6-run lead, or with a 9-10 run lead in the 6th inning. They're stealing up 7-1 in the 9th inning against the Nationals when Josh Bell's not holding the runner on. And, when somebody on the Giants gets drilled in the head, that's going to be on purpose. But until then, but the thing is, they're going to have to do it against the Dodgers or something, and the Dodgers aren't going to want to do it because they don't want to, put the base runners on. And even if the Dodgers are throwing a perfect game, we know that they're not going to let the pitcher finish it. Okay. Well, although Walker Buehler on Tuesday did demand that he was staying in the game, and he pitched all 9. So I got to give him credit. Yeah. But Giants 13 wins, Dodgers 12, Padres 11, Rockies 10, and Arizona takes 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers. They're 8-11.
They always play them well.
And the Mets just had them kind of beat up, but maybe the Diamondbacks are even a little better than you think. So it's an interesting start there in the NL. In the AL, there's only one story, and that's cousin Anthony Rizzo, leading the league in home runs after the 3-homer game. So what else can you say? The Yankees, are they the most maligned team to ever win 11 out of their first 17 games?
Yes. Yes.
I mean, is it crazy or what? Give me the non-Yankee perspective here.
Well, the thing about it is that everybody expects the Yankees are always a weird team because, one, they have the high payroll. They're the Yankees, so you expect them to do well. You expect them to win division, even if they're not the best team in the division, because I think Toronto is really good and Boston's getting better. But everybody's going to expect the Yankees to win division. Everybody expects the Yankees. Yankee fans expect them to get to the World Series every year, and if they don't, it's a disappointment. So even if they're not the best team in the division, they're not the best team in the AL, they're expected to get to the World Series. And they haven't been there in such a long time that Yankee fans have gotten frustrated to the point where they will criticize every little thing they do, even if it's one thing all year. So it's just frustration that's built up in Yankee fans over the past 10, 12 years that they haven't made it to the World Series.
Dawg?
Yeah, I think Pierre's spot on it. I think Boone sort of keeps it on too. So it's always fun. Like it always brings it out, right? If you get a problem with the manager or whatever, like just every little problem is something to complain about, right? So you can go and blast away on that versus like, your relief isn't quite there, right? So I think that sort of helps get part of it. It's fun copy to take shots at Booney and when he's going to go and blah, blah, blah. Again, we sort of talked in the offseason, right? I think we both were sort of aligned that we kind of liked the moves that the Yankees made. I mean, it might have been nice to get a little bit more out of the pop at shortstop, but I think it's kind of positioned that for the good rookie coming up or whatever. So it makes sense why they didn't necessarily go along that way. Cole getting off to a slow start again, and he's sort of another polarizing figure, right? That people love to kind of jump on and be like, oh, you're not this, you're not, or as we refer to on the Metland, the seventh best pitcher in New York. But having a little fun with it. I don't know after Carrasco today. We'll have to back that off a little bit. And Cole had a good start, but so I think that sort of begets it out there. And again, they're still the big brother in the town and in the league. So anything with the Yankees that's not them running away with it is always, oh, what was us.
That's what's happening when you're making the big bucks too. You got Garrett Cole making all that money. You got Judge wanting $30 million a year. You got all these people. You got Stanton still on that contract, which seems like it's a 50-year contract because it's still going on. So you got all those people making all this money. You got to produce.
Yeah.
Well,
it'd be the Mets with Lindor right now, right? I mean, people would be flipping up on Lindor, but the record's covering up, and we're feeling great by ourselves, and Buck is a genius, and blah 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 blah. But
winning solves all evil.
Yes, it does. So,
you got the. I love the kind of falafel move because it gave him another guy that could just handle the bat. It reduced the strikeouts. It gives him another way in a quadrant of the lineup. And Dawg, I know a quadrant is a fourth, and we're talking really thirds, and when we're talking baseball lineups, right? But you kind of get what I mean.
Segment. We'll go with the segment.
Segment. Thank you.
Segment.
It gives them a way to produce a run in a segment of the lineup that they haven't done for literally like a generation. And for when you have Joey Gallo in there, and even Judge and Stanton, when you have a LeMahieu and a kind of Falefa in there, it changes the mix a little bit. Like they just haven't had guys like that, or more that LeMahieu's really been the only guy like that. Like even Gleyber Torres wasn't like that. He was hitting 30 something homers a year. He wasn't the guy who's in there now trying to hit the ball the other way and regain his confidence. So I like that. I like that move. I'd like to see them have another bat like that that's playing that center field or that center / left field spot doing it instead of Hicks or Gallo. Both of those guys are good defenders at least, but they just there's a lot of there's a lot of walks and there's a lot of swings and misses and occasional power here and there, and both guys are kind of fast and they can run, but they don't handle the bat the same way as a guy like IKF, and it just changes the lineup. It changes the dynamic. That's been the difference between them and the Red Sox. You just look at it from year to year to year. The difference always was like they had one more Dustin Pedroia dirt devil than the Yankees did when the Yankees actually had some of them. Yeah. So, and then the manager, Dawg, what did I say? I picked the Red Sox to win the East because they have the best manager. He's out 6 days for COVID, and they go 1-5. I'm telling you
he's
that
the best manager in baseball.
He is. Alex Cora is.
Yeah, and you can
one.
clearly see it with the Mets. It literally is night and day. And maybe backing off the analytics crew a little bit and getting a little bit more focused on supporting the players rather than trying to fit them into a certain hole or something like that. But yeah, that's definitely made a huge change. I mean, you see the stealing bases, bunting, hitting the other way, all that. That's definitely an organizational change. So I credit primarily to Buck, but I think the whole organization seems to be kind of embracing that.
And the Mets are, they win 14 out of their first 20 without Ben Simmons. I mean, Jacob deGrom in the lineup.
Oh man.
Oh boy, I'm an actual Nets fan, which is hard on me now. Maybe we'll do a Nets retrospective with our old buddy Chris Carino at some point. I don't know if I could take it though. Okay, so now that we talked a little bit about the Yankees there, we'll finish it up. And as Dawg knows, we're pushing the hour and a half here, but we'll finish it up, and I'll give you a little background on my week last week, and actually the reason why we ended up not doing a show. So producer Xavier and he had off from school, although his triplet brother and sister did not, because they're at a different school, and he's my Yankee fan. And I said, hey, a week or so ago when Dawg and I were actually doing the show, so if you listen to the last episode during the Die Hard Dad segment, you got a little preview of this. I was like, oh, I wonder where the Yanks are playing next week. And they were playing in Baltimore over the weekend, and they were playing in Detroit. And I'm like, oh, in Detroit. Like, my friends are there, the Crowleys. We can go visit. They used to be my neighbors. We don't get to see them that much anymore. And, we could go out and see them and see Yanks Tigers. And I'm like, wait a minute. Miguel Cabrera is like within 10 hits of 3,000. Like, we might be able to run ourselves into history. Well, guess who was in the park on Thursday afternoon when Aaron Boone took the bat out of his hands? Yes, yours truly and producer Xavier were witnessing it from the fourth row of section 119 or wherever we were on the first base side. And man, you want to talk about people who were pissed. Yankees suck. Fuck the Yankees. It was all coming out, and then people were looking at us with our Yankees stuff. I'm like, listen, dude, you didn't drive. You could drive. You have a half-hour drive home. I got a day. All right, you didn't drive here from New Jersey to see history, and take this all in. And we got our pictures with the 299 sign, and I mean, I've been resistant. As we talk. Mike Serra's in the chat, and he's the head of the Fire Boone fan club over here, and I've been resistant to it because I think basically unless you have Alex Cora or Terry Francona or maybe Buck Showalter, unless you have one of those guys, the manager doesn't really matter that much. Dave Roberts is not really different from Aaron Boone, in my opinion. They're kind of the same guy. They kind of do the same thing. They're organizational button pushers. They're consensus makers, and occasionally they have to make a difficult decision on the field, and, so they do it. You may not like it. I just thought that was I think that was even worse for baseball than Kershaw, coming out of a perfect game.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, right? It's April 22nd or April 21st, whatever it is. There's 2 outs. So here's the situation. The bases are loaded. It's the 8th inning. Jeimer Candelaria is up, and he's against Lucas Litke. He's a lefty, and Candelaria is a switch hitter. He grounds back to the pitcher, who starts a 1-2-3 double play. So they hold him at 1-0. There's now 2 outs. And Cabrera's up. I mean, Cabrera's 39. It's not 2003 when he beat you in the World Series, okay? It's not his Triple Crown season anymore. Those days are long gone. It's not even 2016, okay? So if there's 1 out or there's no outs and you're walking him to set up the double play or to just, make the force at any base, I can kind of live with it. But with 2 outs, And Austin Meadows, who's a total Yankee killer. Anybody who's watched the Yankees against the Rays for the last 3 years knows that that's like the last guy that you want to face. Like, you just don't want to. It doesn't matter who you have. You could have Chapman against him. You could have any lefty you want. He just, whatever is the reason, he's got the mojo that kills the Yankees, and he's the guy that you're trying to face. But the moment is just so much bigger than that. And Peter and Dawg, Boone just disappointed me for for a lot of reasons, for personal and selfish. Like, I wanted to see the guy get his 3,000th hit with my son there, and the whole week was just tremendous. Like, our friends the Crowleys just did such an amazing job, like, making us feel like it was our home. And we went to the Wednesday game, and Rizzo hit a home run there, and we got there before the game, and Xavier got a nice pick with like Judge right there. He was, and him and Stanton were very cool to, like, it was just a great father-son trip. And Dawg was the tiebreaker, and on the air he told me, he's like, you got to go. And that was really the reason why we went in the end. That kind of broke the tie. And like, we almost saw it Wednesday night. He got 3 hits. And like, he had a shot at it Wednesday night. I'm like, okay, well, this is going to cost us more now to go Thursday because we didn't get our Thursday ticket. But like, we're like, oh my God, this might be happening tonight. And then Thursday, we're like, okay, there's a really good chance it's going to happen. And he's 0 for 3. And he didn't look good in any of the at-bats, to be honest with you. And so, like, okay, we did get to see him have 4 chances at it. Well, as Dawg knows, being a numbers guy, well, with each time he doesn't get it, that increases the chances that he's going to get it the next time, right? So, it was like sort of an unexpected at bat. Like, we didn't think that he was going to bat again, and there he was. And he just takes the bat out of his hands for, this lefty righty platoon. Whatever. And I got so pissed. I never looked up the numbers. I didn't look up Litke against Cabrera career. I didn't look up Litke lefty righty. I didn't look up Cabrera lefty righty this year, 2 years. I didn't look up Austin Meadows against the Yankees and against lefties. And I just was done with it. I was like, you know what? That just sucked. Yeah. And just let the guy pitch. Let him pitch. Like, he's one of your high leverage guys. Yep. So just let him face the guy. If he gets him out, he gets him out. And if the guy gets a hit, he gets a hit. He knocks in 2 runs. Instead, you walk him. Meadows, of course, what does he do? He gets the bat on the ball, bloops a single over second and in front of Hicks, and 2-run score anyway. And all you did was lose a chance at the moment.
You just tell him to pitch around, right? Because Miggy's going to swing at anything close, right?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how hard is this? Pitch around, don't groove him something. If he comes out and hits once out of the zone and he hits it for a hit, well, then so be it.
Yeah.
And if he walks, he walks. But yeah,
just
intentionally do it. I mean, it's insane. It's crazy.
And so
it's April. It's April against Detroit, right?
Right.
I mean, come on, really?
And
this could be the thing for the year for Detroit.
Like, if you're
getting the hit.
If you're winning the game, maybe I could understand it. If the game is tied, maybe I could. But you're losing, and there's 2 outs, and you're not setting up the double play. Here's the other reason why it disappointed me. And it goes back to the reason why I've defended Boone a lot of the time over the years. Not that I think he's a great manager, just that I think that, unless you're going to replace him with one of these top guys, it doesn't matter that much. Aaron Boone is a 3rd-generation major leaguer. There are so few of them. It's like the Boones and the Bells, and that's it. And not only is he a 3rd-gen, so his grandfather Ray Boone played for a long time. His father Bob Boone, before Pudge Rodriguez, had the all-time record for most appearances in Major League history by a catcher who knows the game better than catchers. And his father's been a Major League manager as well. His brother was an all-star who almost won an MVP. I mean, this is like a baseball family. Like, Aaron Boone knows what he's doing in a Major League dugout. Like, Aaron Boone belongs in a Major League dugout. Like, he's not like out of place there, right? Like, he's got more cred than, more pedigree than like practically anybody ever could have.
Yeah.
And like for him to just like miss on that it just sucked. It sucked. It sucked. And even, when producer Xavier and I, like, we were in the car, or when people were asking us, like, how was the trip? We're like, it was awesome. It was like the trip of a lifetime, except the only negative thing was that. And it was like a huge negative. But, let me tell you something. As bad as it felt watching it, and as bad as you felt as Tiger fans, eventually as a Tiger fan, if you were living in Dearborn, you could have went back. It got rained out Friday night, and you went back, at 110 on Saturday, and he gave you a hit in a 4-run inning, and then Spencer Torkelson hit a home run to drive him in. So you had your whole changing of the guard thing backed up there. At least you got to go and see it. You weren't driving back to New Jersey feeling like, wow, we had a chance to see the 33rd time this has ever happened in Major League history, and this jackass decided to fucking walk him. I mean, like, if he went up there and he grounded out or whatever, it's like, okay, it just wasn't, it wasn't our night.
Wasn't meant to be, yeah.
Right, it wasn't meant to be. But that was a hard pill to swallow. That was a hard pill to swallow.
And like you said, it's different in the Kershaw situation, because Kershaw, that's more towards an organizational decision that's whatever. But this was about baseball. This was about the sport. This wasn't just about the Yankees. And he kind of made it about the game and about the Yankees.
The Kershaw thing sucked too. Like I think, like, you tell him to go up to Clayton, you're 6 outs away. Throw it underhand. Maybe they just keep popping up. Like, you have a good defense behind you. Just
pitches, like.
I know. Now I know he's coming off a big injury and it's really cold or whatever in Minnesota, and I get all that stuff. But just throw BP, like, and just see if somebody gets a hit, they get a hit. If you walk somebody, we'll even take you out. But maybe you just run into 6 outs, and like, I want to see Clayton. I'm not a Dodger fan, but I want to see Clayton Kershaw throw a perfect game. I'm stopping what I'm doing if Clayton Kershaw is throwing a perfect game. I don't, work call. We got the MLB on the back screen. I mean, it's like that kind of deal, right? Anyway, so I had to vent that out. Dog, I don't know. That might count as diehard dads this week.
I think so. That was a good diehard dads.
I think it did.
It's poignant.
All right, Pete. Let's give the plugs again. Give your your Twitter, your social media, and how people can follow your stuff.
You can follow me on Twitter, Pacman, PACMAN 453323. And that's Jordan's number, pick a number, and Jordan number to remember it. You can also go and see my mock draft on thehuddlereport.com. It'll be coming out officially tomorrow morning when they post it.
Nice.
It's entered into pretty much a contest of all the top drafts in the United States. So you'll see how everybody does there. And you can also catch my podcasts with my teammates, Victor Salazar and David Quinones, on Two Dudes and a Mexican on YouTube. And you can also catch my podcast, which is Pack Sports Zone, also on YouTube.
Okay, and there's a lot of good stuff there, especially the when it comes down to this, Dawg, was talking about a lot of the draft stuff there. So we're glad to do that. You can follow the Dawg at Jeff Healy 8. That's the number 8. You can follow me at Diamond Diehards. That's on Twitter, but that's on all social media as well, including LinkedIn. We're over there. And if you want to interact with us, like Gatto Acupuncture and like the Mascolo Group Realtors, and like FMSgraphics.com, and like Big Ed's Car Wash in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, then find us anywhere on social media and send us any kind of message. We're pretty easy to get a hold of, and you're dealing with us. You're not dealing with anybody else right there. And we'll be glad to talk about what we could do to build that relationship. And it's been real good so far with our partners, and we appreciate them very much. We suggest that you patronize them as well. That is going to do it for our second special event as we delve outside a little bit the world of baseball. This was the NFL Draft Spectacular with my good pal Peter Clarke, and we are glad that you joined us. Don't forget to follow us on all of the podcast apps, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon, or wherever else you get them, including TalkShoe. and YouTube as well, and join that Facebook group. That's really the place where you're getting this live stuff, and you can interact in the comments like our pals Mike Serra and Georgia Morez and Uncle Paul and all, some of the other regulars and some who want to jump in there at well. That is going to do it for a wonderful show. We are glad that you joined us. For our guest, Peter Clarke, and the Dawg, Jeff Healy, this is Joe Rizzo. Diamond Diehards is out.